You're locked in to the hottest station on the planet.
Resistance is futile. The revolution has begun.
You're listening to Rebelpreneur Radio, helping you break the rules and build the business you need for the life you want. And now, broadcasting his pirate signal
from somewhere beyond the status quo,
here's your host, best-selling author, marketing and media strategist, Ralph Brogden.
Hello and welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio. It's the show that helps you build the business you need so you can live the life you want. I'm Ralph Brogden. There's lots of different ways you can build your business. One of the most exciting ways is through public speaking, but not a lot of people know really how to get into public speaking and how to use public speaking as a way to grow your business. Today's guest is an expert at doing that, and he's going to share his tips for how to build your business through public speaking. I am speaking with Brian Courtney. He is the vice president of the Safegard Group, an insurance and risk advisory firm. Brian has a passion for public speaking to grow his business, and he has a knack for taking risky subject material and creating it into a fun and interactive learning environment. Brian, welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio.
Thanks, Ralph, for having me here.
Thanks for coming on and sharing your wisdom and your experience with us. You are someone, you self-describe as someone who used to be deathly afraid of public speaking. How did you get to where you are now, to where you really have a passion for it and you're really good at it?
It's a great question. I first got started in the insurance and risk management business back in 1999. I knew nothing about sales. I knew nothing about insurance, but other than that, I was very well qualified to do the job. And I had some success early on in my career in building my book of business, but I felt like I was hitting a ceiling. And one of the areas that I felt could help me break through that ceiling was public speaking. However, at the time, I was really afraid to get up in front of an audience and tell people what I know, mainly because, number one, I was afraid that somebody in the room might know more than I do. Others might be just because I was embarrassed to talk about myself. And then the third thing was I was dealing with somewhat mundane and morose subjects that I didn't think anybody would be very much interested in hearing what I had to say anyway.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, insurance is not like, Tony Robbins getting up there and giving a big motivational speech. You're dealing with something that is kind of a monochrome subject. It takes a lot of skill to be able to speak about that in a way that doesn't put people to sleep, right?
Absolutely. It's a lot about how we sell ourselves as an industry, which is somewhat frustrating to me. It gets often commoditized, and I always fought against that when working with prospective new clients and not wanting to be commoditized. And what I found was the folks that weren't commoditized were often viewed as subject matter experts, and they were the ones that were getting up in front of a group of people and sharing their knowledge about what they know. And they were the ones that were getting the attention of prospective buyers and ultimately growing their book of business. So I really wanted to be a lot like them.
So it's really, it sounds like you're talking about authority positioning. It's how you position yourself as a subject matter expert that sets you apart from everybody else who's just giving a talk.
Exactly. I would classify it that way as well.
So there's a couple of things. I want to find out how you transition, what specific steps you took to get over the stage fright. A lot of people have quoted the finding or the study or whatever it is that people are more afraid of public speaking than they are of death. They would rather die, right? Than get up on the stage and give a talk. And this seems to be something that so many people
You're better
struggle
off
with.
in the casket than giving the eulogy, is what we'll say.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I think that's something that resonates with a lot of people, regardless of how much experience they have, and particularly if they don't have a lot of experience with public speaking. What was the catalyst for you, and what were some of the things you began to do to get over that?
Sure. The first thing, and I can recall vividly, the meeting that I had with one of our insurance carrier partners, and we were just having a routine marketing meeting, talking to them about things that I was working on. And then they just happened to mention that they were in the process of forming a Toastmasters group for the people that worked in the company. And this was around the time where I was really contemplating getting into public speaking, but not, quite ready to make the jump yet. And I just felt like I should take a little bit of a baby step towards it. And I asked them politely, I said, listen, I know this is for people within your company, but if there's room for me, I would definitely would like to join your Toastmasters group. And the process started from there. And with Toastmasters, the first speech you give is a 4 to 6 minute presentation about yourself, your life. And to this day, I would say it's probably the most difficult speech I've ever had to give in my life. As somebody that classifies himself as an introvert by nature, introverts find other people interesting. They don't necessarily find themselves interesting. So giving a talk about yourself for 5 minutes, it seemed like a lifetime that I was up there. But yeah. I did get through it. I did feel like $1 million after I did it. And I said, listen, I really like to sign up for the next speech right away because I don't want this feeling to go away. So I got, the next meeting was the following week, and then I prepared another speech, that was part of the Toastmasters curriculum. But outside of that, I had a network of friends in the business world that knew this was a goal of mine to get up there. So they took it upon themselves to start signing me up and giving presentations on insurance subject matters to people that they know, associations that they belong to. So it was throwing me into the deep end and seeing if I could swim. And, but all along the way, they were very supportive, very understanding, and were my biggest champions and cheerleaders along the way. I mean, they made sure that, I was well prepared going into those meetings and helped me with my presentations as well.
So when you get up to speak, do you still experience some of that stage fright? And if so, how do you deal with that? What are some specific tips that listeners who struggle with that can take away from this conversation that they could use in their next presentation?
Yeah, I think I still do get a little bit of stage fright from time to time, not often as I used to, but I do believe that some stage fright is actually good for you. Mm-hmm. It means that you care about what you're about to talk about. You care about the people in the audience and making sure that they come away with a good feeling or good information that they can take away and use for their business. And you care about, using that platform as a way of selling yourself and your business. So a little bit of stage fright is not that bad. It actually, I think, makes you sharp. It makes you, rehearse more than you necessarily would. And I'm a big believer in, rehearsing your presentation, prior to going in, not necessarily reading from a script, but knowing the script,
right.
And having some points that you're willing to make. I also am a big fan of icebreakers, going into the presentation. You're getting up there, you're going to talk to them for, a half hour, 45 minutes, sometimes an hour, hour and a half, and you want to get their attention right away. And sometimes that might be something that you use that is not necessarily part of the presentation, but kind of gets them laughing and engaged early on. So an example of that may be, particularly in the subjects that I talk about that could be somewhat mundane, is I'll use a clip from Ferris Bueller's Day Off about the economics professor, right? And trying to get the audience engaged, and they get a chuckle out of that. And I just say, listen, there's a no drool rule. You can't fall asleep in this class, and I'm going to ask you questions throughout. I hope you ask me questions, and let's try to make this fun and interactive. So that somewhat calms me down when I do an icebreaker, and I kind of get people engaged right away. It gets them leaning forward towards me. I'm leaning forward towards them, and it sets the stage for a fun and interactive presentation.
Yeah, I think the worst thing any speaker can do is to take themselves too seriously, and as if they're giving the State of the Union. And let's face it, most people aren't going to be in that serious of a situation. So bringing in some humor and creating those opportunities to break the ice, to get attention, to engage with the audience, it not only helps them, but it really helps to relax you and sets a different tone so that they're able to benefit and from what you have to say, and you're a lot more comfortable in the delivery of that, and people pick up on that, don't they?
They do. Another way that I tend to calm my nerves down is to smile. Smile at the audience. Other ways that I've used in the past is, not just arriving as I'm supposed to give the presentation, but as people are walking in, introduce yourself to those that are coming in. Thank them for coming. Thank them for listening to you, and kind of get to know them a little bit. Some of the fear of public speaking is you're getting up in front of a group of people that you don't know necessarily.
Yeah. So
the sooner you can, shake hands with somebody, ask them their name, where they're from, get to know them a little bit prior to the presentation, the more relaxed I am, because I feel like I know them a little bit and know that they're there to hear a great presentation.
Yeah, it really helps if you're able to meet with some of your audience ahead of time. And then when you're looking out on them, there's some recognition, and they are, I would think, automatically be more inclined to be friendly and smiling because there's a bit of a connection, however brief, before you actually get down to business and begin to give them the presentation.
Yeah. I also like to scope out the actual room itself and how it's set up. Am I going to be behind a podium? Am I going to be out in front of people with a portable microphone? Just how big is the room? Do I need a microphone? So, getting a general sense of the environment that I'm going to be presenting in also helps me relax as I get into the presentation.
Yeah. That is extremely useful. There's nothing worse than waiting until the last minute, showing up, and
right.
What you envision in your mind is often very different from the situation as it presents itself, and that just making that adjustment in your mind because you didn't get some reconnaissance ahead of time, that can throw you for a loop as well.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing you mentioned was, and I think there's two problems that we identify. The first is most people are afraid of public speaking, and some of that never goes away because you do care and you do want to do a good job. So you've shared some great tips for overcoming that. I think the next biggest problem for public speakers, once they get over their initial fear, is how do you keep from being boring? The worst thing in the world, besides being afraid, is to be boring. And so, especially when you're dealing with a challenging subject, economics or insurance or certain aspects of law, it can put people to sleep, quite literally. So once you get over the stage fright and you become comfortable with what you're doing, how do you then create a fun and interactive learning environment during your presentation?
Great question. The key for me is finding people in the room interesting and getting them to talk, ask questions, and also share stories that are relatable to the subject matter. I believe the more I talk, the less interesting the presentation is. The more I can get the audience members talking and communicating, the more interesting and the more they'll take away from the presentation. So when I'm giving a statistic on, sexual harassment cases in America or bullying statistics in America, I'll often ask questions of the audiences, why do you think that is? And I'm trying to get some opinions from the room as to why that may be. And I want them to share them comfortably. I don't want them to feel like their opinion is wrong, because most people in the audience, when they don't want to talk sometimes because they feel, well, if I say the wrong thing, then I'm going to look bad.
Right.
Where, I'm saying to them, no, this is your opinion. It's not necessarily wrong, but, there are certain things that I'm looking for as far as the answers that you're looking to give, so we can continue to guide this presentation so you can continue to learn on the subject matter that we're discussing. So that is the one of the ways that I do that. The other way that I do that is I create formats within the presentation that make it fun and interactive. So, for example, I set a presentation one time. I made it into the Jeopardy game show where I had a list of columns and answers, and then you had candy that was good for the correct answers. And then with those correct answers, then we would talk about why those answers were correct. So it gave me the forum to kind of talk to the audience and saying, well, this is the answer. Why is that? And if they couldn't answer it, then I would guide the conversation into why that was the correct answer. Because some people may give the right answer, but they don't know why the answer is correct.
Yeah.
So, getting them to actively learn and be participants allows it to be fun and interactive.
In your experience, is there an ideal group size that this works really well, and maybe an upper limit in your mind where it could be chaos, or could you actually pull this off with a group of any size?
I think, obviously the larger the group, the more chaotic it could be. In my experience, I've done these presentations with over 100 people in the audience, and I have a knack of letting the conversation go to a certain point, but also making sure that we're staying on schedule and telling them, politely, hold that point, or, can I talk to you offline after the presentation? It's a great question. But, with the time that I have allotted, I want to make sure that we get to everything. But yeah, I think the smaller group sizes, the 30 to 40 to 50 people, these presentations, these interactive presentations work very well. I think if you have 10 or less, it's not as interactive. You don't have a healthy exchange of ideas and opinions that flow.
Sure. Well, and then so the last question is, what is the best way that a small business owner or a professional service provider, how can they use these presentations to really grow their business as opposed to the typical way I think of face-to-face networking and some of the other activities that people do? What sets this apart as a really fun and viable way to grow your business?
Sure. From my perspective, and the reason why I got into public speaking is I didn't like being commoditized. It was very difficult setting yourself apart from my competitors out there in the marketplace. And one of the ways that I could set myself apart was through public speaking and differentiating myself. To get out of the commodity trap and to be valued as a subject matter expert, there's nothing more powerful than somebody getting up on stage and presenting on subjects that are relatable to a business owner or a C-level person. And they're often the ones that are going to these presentations and looking to get information that they can use for their business. So it's a natural transition from, hey, I'm presenting on a subject, I touch a nerve with that business owner, a challenge that they're looking to overcome, and they're saying, you know what, I need to talk to you afterwards because I've been having this problem or issue, and I think that you might be able to help me through it. Versus the dial, and, network and hope that you meet the right person. These are people that are actually coming to see you and to listen to you talk. So you're presenting to them solutions that they can bring back to their business. So in my opinion, it's far more valuable getting up in front of an audience that is actually interested to hear what you have to say and are interested because you're providing solutions that may ultimately help their business than to try to get somebody on the phone during the day or sending them an email through the mass emails that they may get throughout the day. I just find it far more effective, and it gets you out of the commodity trap.
Very, very good points. And I think that what you said there, that answer you gave really illustrates the importance of authority positioning. It's quite a different position to place yourself in as an expert on a stage or in front of a group of people giving a presentation, as opposed to someone calling you up, trying to get an appointment or trying to get in to see Mr. Big or the CEO or the COO or the CFO, and you have to play phone tag and go back and forth, and it's a completely different approach. They're coming to you, you're perceived as an expert, and it really does set you apart, as opposed to just being the commodity that's out there, and very powerful. And so I hope that our listeners can take these tips and can see opportunity here to apply this in your business, whether you're a coach, a consultant, professional service provider, whatever the nature of your business is. See how you can flip that around. Instead of chasing people around, set yourself up as the subject matter expert in your field, offer these presentations, and have qualified prospects coming to you who are interested in what problems you're able to solve for them. So very, very powerful. Brian, what are you working on right now that's got you really excited that you'd like to share with our listeners?
So I will be giving more content in the area of insurance and risk management in 2020, working with a number of different associations on subjects that are important to them. The one that has gotten the most attention recently and is not slowing down is the prevalence of bullying and sexual harassment in the workplace. And the presentations that I give don't just talk about sexual harassment and creating policies and procedures around it, but actually creating a healthy work environment. Because in my opinion, healthy work, sexual harassment and bullying cannot exist in a healthy work environment. So helping business owners create that environment so they don't have incidents like sexual harassment or bullying that it can occur in the workplace.
Yeah,
so that's
important.
What I'm working on right now, and I'm excited to get out to more people and talk to them about this important subject. It's not going away, and it's an area that every organization needs to improve on.
Absolutely, very important. Well, Brian, this has really been informative, and I think motivational to people who have been toying with the idea of getting more involved in public speaking, maybe adding this as part of their marketing and branding and authority positioning. And so this gives us lots of practical wisdom that I think we can take and implement. Any final thoughts that you'd like to leave us with as we close?
Sure. If you're thinking about public speaking and you're afraid to get started, one of my favorite quotes is from the hockey player Wayne Gretzky that says, you miss 100% of the shots that you never take. So, it's just getting out there, getting out of your comfort zone, not being afraid to fail, and continue to try and work on the craft, because the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll be, and the better you'll be able to deliver a succinct and great and fun and interactive presentation so you can grow your business.
Excellent. Brian Courtney is Vice President of the Safegard Group, an insurance and risk advisory firm, and he has a passion for public speaking to grow his business. He has a knack for taking risky subject material and creating it into a fun and interactive learning environment. You can connect with Brian at safegardgroup.com, and that's Safegard, G-A-R-D, safegardgroup.com. Brian, thank you so much for being on Rebelpreneur Radio today and sharing your expertise with us. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ralph, for the time. I really appreciate it as well. Take care.
You've been listening to Rebelpreneur Radio with Ralph Brogden. Download the show notes and much more at rebelpreneur.com.